Good morning. I think just about everybody knows me. I'm Steve Ernst. I'm the Elder at Large Vice President of the Executive Board. Dan Schmidt, who was our presiding elder, is on a very brief but needed vacation, and hopefully we'll keep this going rather quickly and answer as many questions as we can. I would like to begin with having Pastor Courtwright begin with prayer. Though this is not a voters' assembly, it's a forum, and it's a forum to take in all your questions, and may not have answers today, but we're going to write them down, and we do have an executive board meeting this week. So, Pastor.
We pray. Lord Jesus, as we serve you as members of a local congregation here at Our Redeemer, we pray that everything we do would be done to your glory and for the edification of your church. Bless the discussion this morning with wisdom, with insight, and with a harmonious spirit that seeks in all things to take into account our call to the gospel and how we might proclaim that word here in this building together whenever we gather. Bless us all as dear members of this congregation, and we thank you especially for the work put into this project, and for those who are going to speak about it today. Bless them in their presentation as well. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Courtwright. So again, this is for your benefit, to help us. A lot of things in the past, we've had special committees, and the committees make a recommendation to the executive board, and then we bring it before the congregation at a voters meeting. Today, it's a little bit different. This is kind of a large-size committee, if you will, and I should tell you that we have no preconceived notions of which direction we're going to go. So there's nothing here that's been set in stone, and we're just doing this to appease anybody or any group of people. We're truly here to have you ask your questions. And I would like to say that this meeting today really is, we heard you back in January when you said, is this the best way to go? Is this going to be, and I think Earl's words were, is this an excellent way to do this? And so we try to do, especially with worship, which is our primary activity every single week, doing it excellently. And this is a large project, and we do have funds. As you look at our balance sheet, there's funds that have been given already to this project. But we want to do it right to honor our Lord and Savior, and then those folks that have contributed to the project so far. So again, I just want to let you know that this is not a voters meeting. We will be taking this up the end of April at our next voters meeting. So there are several weeks here in between where you can provide your questions, your input, and any one of the members of the executive board, pastors, Rachel as the worship director. I never get your title right, but director of parish music. There we go. So again, no preconceived notions. I do want to introduce our organ consultant, Dr. Wayne Wagner. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thanks, Russell. He's here. He's been consulting on the project since 2015. And via electronics from Mexico, Dr. Kermit Moldenhauer, our newly appointed head of the organ committee, replacing Sam Wessel, who fortunately has taken a new position in River Falls, Wisconsin, and is unable to continue as our chairman. And we also would like to thank him for his participation. The executive board, like I said, has appointed, and Dr. Moldenhauer has accepted to chair the committee. So we're really blessed. Sam did an awesome job, and now we've got Dr. Kermit coming in and helping us the rest of the way. And obviously, Dr. Moldenhauer has experience with organs, and one of the things that I took note of when we had our January meeting, he has a relationship with Shantz in the past, so I think that we really have it in good hands with Dr. Moldenhauer. Transparency, that kind of came out of our leadership retreat back in January, and that's what we're here about. This is a huge undertaking. Certainly it's not like a construction project, but with the dollar amounts and different things as you go through the program, we definitely want this a congregational decision, not just 5 men that meet once a month and recommend something. So with that being said, I also want to thank for that program that you have in your hand, Bruce Beth, Mark Fisher, Dr. Moldenhauer, and then Pastor Moldenhauer kind of collated everything and put it in what I think is a very user-friendly format for you to peruse. I know you're just getting it today for the most part, but hopefully you've had a chance to peruse it. I have asked Mark Fisher, normally in a setting like this, as Vice President, my role would be to take some notes. Again, this is not an official meeting, but we do want to make sure that we get things down as you would ask the question. So I'm going to try to, as you have questions, please raise your hand. I'll give you the microphone so everybody can hear it and Mark can get it down. Purpose of this, the last line on the project overview and history on the second page. The most recent thinking on the design and placement of the organ is the topic of the forum and discussion today. So with that, Dr. Wagner, would you like to make any comments to start?
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here this morning with you and to get your thoughts and ideas on the proposal as it has developed up to this point. I thought I might say just a bit of a word of what am I in this? What role do I play in this whole idea? First of all, I represent no organ company. I represent no organ builder, nothing like that. My role is simply to assist you and to work with you to determine what are the needs here at Our Redeemer, and then to try to find a good solution to those needs. I worked with a number of our WELS congregations over, especially the last about 6 to 8 years, more so than earlier than that. It was more on an informal basis, but the last few years it's been on a more formal basis. And as we've worked with the project here, I think one of the things that has been very interesting to see happen is how ideas have changed and developed as we've gone along. I recall my first visit and recall saying something to Rachel and Pastor Moldenhauer about, well, that'd be kind of an interesting place for a pipe organ over there. And that's where we are now. But we didn't start there, as you well know. We started over here. And part of that was to try to keep a lot of things the way they were. And then as we worked with that, some of that wasn't working out quite so well. So we started looking at some other ideas. And the Shantz company said, well, what about over there? And I said, well, yeah, let's look at that idea. Some of you may be aware that we pursued the idea of a used organ for a while, and that didn't work out so well. The congregation out in Baltimore, Maryland, was not ready to accept the amount of purchase price that we were willing to give, and that ended that project. This project has taken many different turns. That's not unusual. at all in projects like this. It rarely, I think, I can name maybe one project that I have been involved in where the first idea became the idea and was seen through all the way to the end. So this morning is very important, very helpful as we get to hear your reactions to where we are at this point. And as was mentioned, the meeting you had back in January brought up some very good points, which we think we have addressed as the project is being presented this morning. So.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. I'm not sure on the technology here, but Kermit, can you hear okay? Okay. I thought we'd maybe get some comments from you, but it doesn't seem like it's projecting out to the rest. So we'll address them directly to you as questions would come up. Okay. Did you want to say anything, either one of you? Rachel? All right. So I'm not going to read through this whole booklet. Again, hopefully you've had an opportunity to look through it. One of the things that I'll start out with a question/comment is the idea of a brand new organ versus continuing to shop for used. We had discussed the idea that this is an opportunity to specifically design a brand new one for our space. And if you'd comment on that, as well as then an electronic pipe organ and some of those things.
Okay, maybe I'll start with the second part of that. Why have we taken the route of exploring pipe organs at all? First, we went the used pipe organ route, now we have a new one. Why did we not replace, or why are we not suggesting replacing your current electronic organ with a new digital organ? Okay. There are many ways to approach that question. I think the first one I would say is it is pretty much unquestioned that a pipe organ will lead congregational singing better than any digital organ will. Why is that the case? We sing along to our favorite MP3s and whatever else format you happen. I'm still in the CD range, or maybe the car radio. But we sing along to that, and the sound comes out of a speaker just like it is here now. Why not continue that? It was very interesting to me this morning as I attended the 10:30 worship service, and yes, I was listening to the sermon and all that, but during the hymns, I couldn't help but take in what was happening, and I was imagining a sound that supports the singers from underneath rather than straight at. A sound that envelops the singers rather than is just sort of there for them to hang on to. And I think those are two things that a pipe organ does that no organ which uses speakers as its main projection system can do. And I am not a physicist. I think that'd be the right way, or a physical science person, I suppose is a better way to put it. Science was that subject when I was teaching elementary school that I put at the end of the day and hoped I didn't get to all the time. And so I don't understand totally all the physics involved with it, but what I'm told is that the sound coming out of a vibrating column of air in a pipe, and then when you multiply that by the number of pipes that are used as an organist might play a hymn or liturgy, that there is a physical presence in the room that is totally different from whatever you can do with speakers. And as I said, this is a pretty well unquestioned thing. Even digital organ companies, if you look hard on their websites, you may find a statement that'll say that the digital organ is really, it won't do the same thing a pipe organ will do. Okay. So I think that's one very important thing, is that it supports congregational singing better. A second thing that is often used to demonstrate why a pipe organ versus a digital organ is the longevity of a pipe organ. There are pipe organs that have been around for hundreds of years, and they still work. Yes, there are occasional times that you have to fix something up, or they're changed a little bit or whatever. But generally with a digital organ these days, a rule of thumb is at about 20 years, it will start to have some issues. At about 25 years, everybody's going to start noticing the issues. And by the time you get to 30 years, you really are on borrowed time. Now, I'll put Rachel on the spot, or someone. Do we know how old the Alan is here? I think it's 35, maybe? Or older. I mean, you are really on borrowed time. And it was used at the time. Huh? Okay, interesting. Yeah. And it's wonderful that it's continuing to serve you until you look for a more permanent solution along the way. So let's use that 25 years. Okay, a digital organ, and I'm going to throw a number out here, and I don't have a quote on this or anything. I'm only basing it on what I have experienced in other situations. I suspect that the two probably most common digital companies these days would come and look at the space, and they're likely to say the organ they would recommend is going to be somewhere between $75,000 and $125,000. Somewhere in that bracket. Okay. That alone surprises some people sometimes, that it's that much, but I suspect they would. Okay, in 25 years, you're going to spend another more than that, right, as things move forward. Well, now you're just about up to the lowest of the options that are given in the booklet at around a little under 220,000, and that's in 25 years. Okay? Now you go out 50 years, or 75, or 100 years, and the Lord willing, your congregation will be around that long and will be still singing our Lord's praises. In the long run, it is another very established fact. You will save money. Granted, it's more upfront. That's the other side of that. But that's true of a lot of other things in our life as well. So I think those are two really, really major points. A third one, I have had a number of expressions given to me while I've been here, and as I've worked with Sam and others over the last couple of years, that talk about excellence. And I think, again, the pipe organ is excellence. It is something that is permanent in the sense that it will be there a long time. It will serve for a long time. It's not something that we have for a while, then we get something else. I think that's another route. The fourth one, may not apply in your case, but it does apply in some cases. I don't know in your situation. When you are going for excellence in a music program in a congregation, you attract excellent musicians. They want to be a part of that, and they want to do things that make use of those excellent things that you've provided. I see in this space and in your music program an excellent music program going on. First of all, the choral work is going very well. Your congregational singing is good. I think the missing piece of the puzzle is a quality pipe organ. That's the one thing that's missing, and as a major thing. Without adding about 20 feet to the ceiling and giving you even more reverberation, although you've done some things recently that have enhanced that as well. So I think those are some of the things, but I'd go back to the very first one and say the really key is congregational singing is supported and led by a pipe organ in better ways than it is with a digital organ. Okay, so that was a long-winded answer to the pipe digital thing, but I think that's an important one. That's a distinction that always is a part of these projects and needs to be made. That being said, I want to say too that there would be times when I would work with a congregation when I would say a digital organ is your best option. Frankly, I don't see that here at this point. I see a pipe organ as your better option. Okay, then the second was used versus new, if I recall. As we started out going the used route, we did have budget in mind. And we were thinking, okay, what might be a realistic idea to work with? And as we threw some numbers out, I thought, well, to do a new instrument for a budget that would be, say, $200,000 to $225,000 would be a real challenge to find an organ builder of quality that would do that. I could find an organ builder that would do that, but I don't know that I would recommend them, is it? Because just like everything else in life, there are lots of different qualities of organ builders. So we really went that route quite a bit at first and tried to find, and I think we had a very good option. Some of you recall the Baltimore, Maryland option maybe, that would have worked very fine. And unfortunately, the Lord closed that door. He said, that's not the route I want you to go. So we had to look at some other ways. And then in discussion with the Shantz company, actually from our very earliest contacts with them, they had suggested the organ that we're now looking at, or something close to that, as something to think about. It was roughly the same general price area, but now why have we decided, okay, that's the route we want to go and not look for more used organs? Because there are plenty of used organs on the market. Not all of them would work in this situation. And we had considered one of them too, from Akron, Ohio. In this case, you would be getting everything is new. You're starting fresh, so to speak. So it has the longest life to it. It is the newest technology in terms of organ building. It gives you, the best deal is the bottom line, I think, of it. You get what you need to lead worship in the sounds that would be in the organ at really a very favorable price. And we did, at least I had considered a number of other companies too. I can assure you, to the best of my knowledge, that if we were to approach 3 or 4 other companies of the quality of Shantz, I doubt that they would do any better. In fact, I'd be very surprised if they would do. I can think of some options I've looked at in other situations that for what they are proposing at around that basic level that's described in the booklet at around $220,000, you'd probably be looking at another $30,000 to $40,000 from some other companies if we were to look for new organs. I think what that says, first of all, is the Shantz company is very interested in your project. They have been all along. We've asked much of them along the way, and they've responded well with most of that. Every company finally says, here's the line we can't cross, and go from there. But I think it would be a good company and would work. And again, I don't work for them. I don't get anything from them or any of that either. So, did that answer it? Yeah.
Yes, I just want to comment too about how it would be designed specifically for our space, and you can actually have too much organ. With a lot of these, even the ones that we were looking at, there was more than what we can utilize.
Okay. Yes, organists love big organs because they can do lots of things on them. But there is such a thing as right sizing to a space. And all of the guidelines that are out there for pipe organs would say this design is right sized for your space. It's roughly between 10 or up to 14 ranks of pipes. That's about right for a church that would seat, let's say, roughly 200. You can go above and below that in different services, of course, but in this space, there's no way you need a 30-rank pipe organ in this space. It would be just too much. It would have to be voiced so quietly in order not to just overpower everything for a block around that it just wouldn't work very well. So I think that the size, again, according to all of the general guidelines that organ builders use and that I'm aware of, it is right in the ballpark on that. Sorry, there was another part of the question that I forgot. That basically it. Okay, and I might say too that the movement of the case over to that corner rather than over here. that I think is a very good option. It utilizes a corner that is on what we call one of the main axes of the building. There are two of them. One is the one I'm standing on. The other goes from the other corner to the corner, and that is the best for the sound to get out into the congregation. It's coming at them and able to envelop them, as I mentioned before, rather than going across them. That's a little different idea. And originally we had the organ over in this area because we were thinking that was the only option we could deal with at that time. Again, I'm going to go out on the limb, and I hope the architect who designed this space is not here this morning, but I would suspect that if a pipe organ would have been designed for this space when the building was built, that is the corner it would have gone in. And I'd be very surprised if it would not have, because of the heating, air conditioning things that are over in this corner. Those are the two prime areas. So.
Thank you. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to address, and I know we're doing a lot of talking and you're not, but some of these are questions that have come up already since the January meeting. And one of them is this fourth rank adding the addition to the process. And Dr. Moldenhauer, on the pages aren't numbered, but on the page of the Schanz pipe organ proposal, having the additional, I think you might remember from January, the meeting suggested that, well, we could do the basic and then add on in the future. And you have to allow for space in the case that you could do so. But to add it in the future adds additional cost to that, because what happens is Schanz then has to go out and make the next row of pipes, and you've got another process going, versus now they would be in production mode and make that all at once. And I think if I'm getting it all from what Dr. Moldenhauer had put in there and what I had discussed previously with him, he's making a recommendation. Well, not a recommendation, he kind of laid it all out, but it kind of goes back to what Earl was saying back in January. And I don't mean to pick on you, but I heard you at least 3 times say, is this the best, and what is it going to be to do it now? And the thought is, do it now because of the savings you can do. It's all packaged in this, what contract we would be signing with them. And I do want to mention, there's no contract signed. So this is not a done deal even for the basic organ plan. Yes, we have funds. And if for some reason the congregation says, no, we're not going forward, well, then the executive board has to deal with what do we do with the funds that have been contributed already. I'm not getting that as a sense of the congregation as they don't want to go ahead. It's interesting, I shared with Rachel this morning, both she and Pastor Moldenhauer have played the organ through Lent, and they've had a few stanzas where they've let us sing a cappella, and each time that happens, I worry that the organ went out and they're not going to be able to come back in and continue playing with us. But they actually said that was by design. So I think you've already heard from Dr. Wagner that we are on considerable borrowed time. Rachel was even sharing this morning that a few times when she was practicing, some weird things have happened that she hopes doesn't replicate in the service coming forward. So there is some sense of urgency to make some decisions and move forward. So I think I'm done chatting here. Questions? Dwayne.
Do you have the motion available that was made at the January meeting? I thought there was some finality.
I do not. We can get that sent out. Anybody in the group here? We'll look it up. More questions? Go ahead.
Can I ask, how much do we have set aside now for the organ?
I think cash on hand is close to 170. 159, 170, right in there. But there are additional, I don't want to say commitments, but folks have said, we'll help get to the final number. Now that final number is up to the congregation. I would say that depending on the proposals, the things that are in that booklet, we're probably talking, and please, I'm not saying final numbers, but somewhere between 300 and 350 if you include the AV upgrades and things to advancing the ministry beyond just here, like live streaming and different things.
So basically, this is going to be for, over and above what is collected currently.
That is the intention. Dwayne.
I got two questions. One would be, are we intending to use the organ more in services once we get a new organ, or are we going to continue to use the piano to the degree that we are doing right now?
Parish Worship Director.
To my knowledge, I don't think we have plans to change anything beyond what we are currently doing.
Then the second question I have is there any correlation between all of these extra ranks that you might consider to put on the organ and the ability of the organist that we have to play it?
Are you asking if we have capable organists to do it?
Essentially, yeah, that's what I'm asking, is if you put all of these ranks onto this organ, are those ranks going to really be utilized? Or should we stick with something basic as
The-
opposed to putting all this extra money into an organ that nobody's going to take advantage of?
The direct answer is yes, we have organists that are capable of using the additional ranks beyond what's available on that and beyond the basic proposal. So yes, they would be utilized. Correct? Yes.
Just an additional thought on that is that you're talking about an organ that you're going forward, you're looking at 100 years or more. So I think you would really limit yourself if you did the very basic based on who we have here right now. I think you want to have an ability to have whatever musicians we have in the future.
Thank you. So the modified motion that was approved, the congregation authorizes the executive board to sign a contract with the Shantz Organ Company for fabrication and installation of a new pipe organ. The quoted total is $207,000, would be completed in about 1 year, and is anticipated to be paid for with special gifts. Andrew.
Just looking at a couple of different layouts, is there any advantage or disadvantage that I can see still right next to the organ, or is it fine
The question comes up about the four proposals in seating. That's why there are four proposals. Where it is marked off where the organ, where the pipes would go, and thoughts of where the console would go. In marking off, talking with folks, I personally think it could be a loss of between 4 to 10 seats, not pews, but by cutting down some pews over here, reshuffling. Dr. Wagner doesn't even think potentially we would have to change a whole lot as far as the seating. I can speak as a choir member, and I don't like sitting like that facing out to the congregation, and that's why you see a lot of us migrate to the pews after singing. And if we have a little bit better visage from on this side of the sanctuary, I'm all for it. Even if we had to sing up in front, heaven forbid. And that's kind of an inside joke with choir, because we won't go into it. But Dr. Wagner.
Yeah, just a couple of things on you know how placement of the organ over there affects your layout and the rest of the sanctuary, and to answer the question of can you sit that close to the pipes and all that, or that's sort of part of that, or the choir is so close. Yes, and many. In many churches that have a balcony or a gallery in the back, and the choir is in the gallery and the organ's in the gallery, they're right there. The church I'm a member of in New Ulm, St. John's, the organ is in the back of the balcony and the choir sits right in front of it. That's not unusual at all. One of the things that I'll maybe go back to the comment that you made just a little bit ago of not building the organ for the particular organists that are right here. I think one of the things with an organ, if we accept that idea of its longevity, it has to have a certain amount of flexibility in other things as well. And as I looked at the various options that were, and I think there are some other options besides the one that are in your booklet that might be considered too. I see probably the best ones is the ones that provide flexibility at least in the short term. And whether that means to not change a lot or anything at this point, other than what you have to accommodate the organ itself, or whether that means trying some things, and if that doesn't work out so well, trying something a little bit different, I don't know. There are a couple of ways to think about that maybe. One way, and this is some people may not agree with either way, I suppose, but one would be to say, okay, we want to have this instrument, this kind of instrument as part of our worship program. And we will figure out how to do the rest so that we don't harm other aspects of our music program. The other way is to say, here's what our music program is right now, and we're going to make an instrument fit into that. I tend to prefer the first way because I think it's better in the long term. And where the second way, things can change and work. That's my opinion. Okay. But that's what you asked me to do, right? Is to give me an opinion. And then the input from your musicians on staff and how they would want to do that. I can see a lot of places for the choir in this space, but I'll save that for some other discussions.
Questions directly for Dr. Wagner?
In regards to servicing of the organ, being new, you would think there would be less servicing, but how often does that need to be just checked over or whatever so you don't have any issues?
Yep, good, very good point. Because servicing is sometimes given as the reason that the pipe organ isn't such a good long-term investment. But the reality is it really is a good long-term investment. The regular maintenance would probably be at least a once-a-year tuning, preferably be twice a year. Once in the fall, once in the spring is kind of typical. And an organ of this size, if you're in that 10 to 15 rank area, a good service person with an assistant can probably do the tuning in 4 to 5 hours. Even less, maybe, and especially with it being a new instrument, it would be even less than that. I'll maybe use as an example the organ. I referred earlier to St. John's Church in New Ulm. We have a Chants instrument that was new 25 years ago. We just celebrated the 25th anniversary. It was installed or dedicated March 7th, 25 years ago. We have had no major maintenance on it other than those tunings. Nothing other than one little switch that needed to be replaced. It was an electronic part, of course. That's always what goes, but that's been it. So, and I would say a quality builder, which Chants is, that's what you expect. You expect nothing real major for 40 to 50 years when you might have to do some work with the winding system or whatever, but or if you just want to upgrade some things, but generally that's it. And how much does a tuning cost? That depends on the tuner you get. Now you have some people locally here that you have a very good organ builder locally here, who I'm sure Shantz would have no trouble if that person serviced the instrument, and I would say for a few $100s once or twice a year would be the maintenance. By a few hundred, I probably not more than 5. But don't quote me on that.
Since you mentioned tuning, how worried should we be since that's an outside corner?
Yeah. I don't think that will be a problem in this case because there's not a window coming directly on it. Again, I'll use the organ I play on all the time as an example. It's on an outside wall. It's a west wall. There's actually a stained glass window behind the organ. We covered it up, to put the organ in. That was a big issue in that situation. Do we cover? And the truth was, the old organ had already covered half of it up. So we thought, well, this is not it. But that has not affected tuning, and that stained glass window is not a well insulated. There's not like a storm window on it, all that kind of thing. It's very cold in there in the wintertime, but it's been very stable in tuning. So I don't see that as a problem here. The light coming in up there is above and won't affect it at all. And that would be that's southwest, right? I think if I have my directions right. So I don't think that will be any kind of a problem. Nothing I would anticipate. Let's put it that way.
Earl, comments, thoughts, questions?
Well, I first of all would like to say I think you did a beautiful job on that. Kind of knocks my presentation off because I don't have anything to say.
Okay, next person. No.
The only thing I would like to discuss, Dwayne brought it up to me a long time ago, and we talked about we got a certain size cabinet here. I would like the designers to tell me whether that can restrict those dimensions, or could we make it longer and narrower, more in depth. Could they design the box and the area rather than this is the box?
Yes, I think this, Shantz would say this is the design that would take up the least floor space, is to do it this way. Because if the way it's designed right now, if you've heard of the picture that's in the booklet, and I'll say a couple of things about that design. First of all, that is not the final look of the organ. That's where the concept is at this point. We've already talked about some adjustments to that a little bit, with the front of the case going out a little bit and something behind the row of pipes a little bit, and maybe some other ideas as well. The bottom of the case where you see the pattern that is similar to the bottom of your ambo and altar and sort of fits in with the windows back there. That can all be adjusted. I think the point is really a good one here of the dimensions are really it. And this is, as Shantz feels at this point, this is the most, I'll say, space economical way to fit it into that corner. Because the blower, some of the winding system, some of the components of the organ that you don't see are kind of down on the bottom level. The pipework is above that. That's also desirable in terms of the sound speaking out over to the congregation, that it not be too low, which was a bit of an issue with the original design over here. Some of the organ was on the bottom, some of it was on the top, and we had some concerns about that too, and how sound would move out. So when a row of pipes is put on a chest, there are certain arrangements that work with less design, hence less cost, kind of thing. So this design is, again, I think the most economical way to do it from both a space standpoint and a cost standpoint. If you start spreading things out to the sides, I would pretty much guarantee it's going to raise the cost. And you don't gain anything from a sound standpoint. I think you're better off this way. It really would be tucked in there pretty tightly. You know, and I know a few weeks ago I came and saw the blue lines on the floor, and I was you know, how I was visualizing that in my head. This is even better than what I thought it was going to be, because there's not much wasted space really at all.
Bruce? In terms of geometry, this 60 by 60, so if you put the organ in an addition up there, you have a 60-foot axis. If you put it in the corner, you get an 80-foot axis. And then you don't set the pipes up to reflect directly on the cell. You get a 45-degree corner, you get the bubbles. Geometry, so this axis is the right one. Putting it outside the building footprint won't get you a better sound. It will get you more seating, but I'd rather reserve the area to the south of the building as a future seating expansion. So a window made like that could be put on this wall, and an addition like the narthex could be put on this wall for additional seating. When we burst the seams with all the people wanting to come here and hear Oregon.
Thanks, Bruce. Mark Fisher, any comments or questions? I'm sure we all still have a lot of thoughts in mind and want to go through and reread the document in front of us, but questions, comments you have at this point? Russ?
In regards to the floor print, does a fourth rank or voice, is that included in this? Would it be smaller? Would it be the same?
Yeah, the space is already there. The space is already included for it. I think at the bottom of one of the pages, kind of a side diagram. There are two diagrams. One has a little band next to the front of the organ. The other has how the pipes are arranged inside. So that inside already accommodates the additional four rings.
Dwayne Hins.
I'd just like to encourage the committee to think about maybe running your preliminary design when you get to that stage. How the cabinet past the architect who designed this building, just you might be able to add a little something to make sure that the architecture of the cabinet really does fit with the other furnishings here. I noticed, as you pointed out, that as we incorporated, whoever prepared that preliminary sketch, it incorporated all of the elements in here, but there may be even a better way of doing it. He may not, if you were to contact him, he may not even want to comment about it. I don't know, but just think about it, because he is in Milwaukee. I think he did an excellent job designing the space for us that he did. He might be able to lend something to it.
Thank you.
Just to add to that a point, that's a good point, but in your case, in working with Sam and Pastor Moldenhauer as we developed, as this whole project kind of developed, there was a decision made along the way that what we'll call the case of the organ, or I like to use the encasement rather for some technical reasons that I won't go into, but that wooden surrounding of the organ, it was decided that the congregation would build that. And that is a huge cost-saving measure because for Shantz to build that would probably, they've thrown out a rough, this is not a quotable figure, but it could be $40,000 for them to build it. Well, if you are able to use some volunteer labor, or give them pizza afterwards, or whatever you do around here, you can bring that down a long way. But then what that has meant in this project is Shantz has said, okay, the congregation is going to provide that encasement. It's much like if a new church building were built, and they built a chamber for an organ, a niche in the wall where the organ would go, okay, the organ company wouldn't design that other than to give the needed dimensions and a rough idea of what's necessary, the electrical connections, all of that. That's exactly what Shantz is doing in this case. They've given us a drawing to give us some idea of what it might look with, but how that drawing might be adorned, let's say, is really up to you. And if you want to get somebody in to do some work with that, that certainly would be fine. The basic idea of tucking it, under the ceiling and all of that, I think that would probably have to stay, because that's how the layout of the pipes is designed. But how that outside is dealt with, there are lots of ways. You can paint it bright red if you want.
We just got rid of the mauve beam, so we're not going with that. I was going to call on you anyways. Brad.
Okay. Well, my passion lies more in space layout than the guts of the organ. I have two questions. One is, does the bottom of that paneling on the bottom, does that have to have any perforation or any breathability for the air to get in and out, or is that just a solid?
Solid wood panel.
Okay. And the other question is the console where the organist sits. With this organ can be anywhere at any time and movable?
What we put into the contract at this time is movable console. I think it's a 25-foot cable, if I remember right, which you can put in the middle of the aisle if you want.
If you have a long enough cable.
Yeah. It's and the cable. If any of you have seen old organ cables, they were this big. It's like your TV cable. That's all it is. It's a cord to plug in, and the cable, I think, is what it's called, to carry all of the digital things. That's all it's doing.
Max.
We have not planned for that, but it could be done. Yes.
Steve, one more.
Go ahead.
As it pertains to the seating layout and few modifications and things like that, I know that seems simple on a drawing, and I really appreciate, I don't know if Mark did the
Yeah.
drawings.
It was a combination of Mark and Bruce efforts.
These are
Well,
great.
I know he had to.
Because I think the root of a lot of the questions in the last meeting was how is it going to be and how is it going to shift around? Just thinking even bigger picture, flexibility of use and where the choir sits or where these things go together, how the piano and the person playing those two instruments is often the same and preventing them from running back and forth.
Right.
How all those things go together.
I think it's
How
clear.
are these pews for real in this space, or is it more flexible seating like over here? And I don't know if that's something that you want to talk about now or not.
I think from the four proposals and even what Dr. Wagner said today, we're still looking for the most efficient way on the seating. And we've heard loud and clear from many of you in the room today that we don't want to lose any seating. And we are trying to minimize that, and again, talking with Rachel, the pastors, to try to have the most efficient, excellent use of the space that we have. So Mark's taking notes. I know he's got it down, but it's not something that we're oblivious to.
There's no magic answer right now, I'm sure.
Right.
It might be an ongoing thing, but we have to realize that.
Yep. Duly noted, Pastor.
I think that, in my mind, is what I'd like to hear some more opinions on. I have no problem, I do subscribe to the idea that a pipe organ is the best sound. The proposal is sound. I think that visually that corner is the best for this space. The one thing that I cannot settle on saying, yes, this is absolutely the best, is it actually going to fit in our sanctuary in such a way that we're all going to be happy with it? And that's what I would like to hear from other people. I guess my concern is the use of space. When I start studying those layouts, I want to make sure that we all, at the end of the day, we're all going to walk away saying, yeah, this is an excellent use of our space. So that's what I would be interested in hearing thoughts on. And I know you haven't studied the layouts as long as I have, but I would hope.
Earl.
I would like the committee to, or the group, whatever, to look into possibility of talking Dan Peterson on cabinet making.
Thank you. We have had him on the list, so thanks for that. Anyone else? Mark.
Do the organists themselves have a preference for how the console goes? I mean, is it hard to face away from the front of the altar when you have to start to, jump in and start the song? I mean, is there, for the people who are actually playing, does that help?
We all have opinions on that, yes. It's movable. I mean, I think, yeah. I wouldn't worry as much about that as about saying we put in a pipe organ. We still have a console similar and probably smaller than that one, but still sizable. We have a piano. What's the impact on the space? I mean, I think that's my concern. And can we come up with an arrangement that we can all at the end of the day say, yeah, I really like this. I still really like this, and it works.
Quick comment on the console, too. The console that we've been working with in this proposal is what they call their choirmaster console. It is a low-profile console, so the top would be lower than what your current console is, and the idea is then the organist can see over it and work with it. I think in your situation, that is really important because no matter where you put the console, you need to have a sight line. Two pastors don't listen to this right now. To the altar is not so important. To the choir director is, and I only mean that from the standpoint that when these organs are like up in a balcony, and the really old organs, or some new ones too, and the organist is facing away. Their back is, to. Now I suspect most of the organists here would say we don't like that a lot. Does it work? Yes. It does, but you need a mirror or some kind of little digital system to see what's going on, and sometimes not so much when the regular pastors are doing things because you get to know what they do, but when you have a guest pastor or you have a wedding or you have something else where things don't always happen exactly the way they usually do, then it's important to be able to see. But I wanted to make the point, this console is what's called a low-profile console, so that should help that.
Thank you. Dwayne Nelson.
Just final comment. I would encourage the committee to study these layouts, and I appreciate pastors' wish that this be a decision that everybody can be happy with. I've been around long enough to know that it's not possible. But just to make the decisions and look at the issues that are important, you have better understanding of that than we do. And I think that detail committee work and group studies is not better.
Andrew?
I'm just looking at two of these layouts. As far as meeting flow, people coming back around, are they usually able to get past the pipe organ or the console and back around, or do we have to do that somehow?
Good question. Pastor?
Well, I think Mark could talk to this too, but if you look at any of them, layout 2 or layout 3, you see there's two pews that the shortening is indicated by the darker lines. So the 4th and 5th pews from the rear, that if you'd have to take that off, because I think Mark was trying to sustain the width of a 4 foot, whatever the width of the aisle is. So yeah, absolutely. And that's where it starts. You start looking at this and you start saying, at the end of the day, the space is 60 foot by 60 foot, and now you're eating some of that real estate up. That's what I want to make sure that it's workable, I think. So.
Randy?
Well, I guess on Brad's comments, if you're talking about the pews and longevity in the layout, I guess my question would be the upholstery of the pews. How long is that going to last, and where does that
Typical.
Those are just things to consider, and I wonder too about that, like I know it all will be gone through, but you know, the fire lanes and like, if you have separate seats, like how many aisles would you need to have and clearance and things like that. Just to consider, I mean, we have 4 aisles, or, no, 3, there we go. 3 aisles here, but you know, is there more aisles in Q3 or less aisles or more seating space?
I think we'll have to recruit Mark Ward for safety issues. You know, he's not doing anything anyways. Bruce.
So Wayne Nelson, I have to acknowledge his wisdom in saying that we should do community work. Trying to balance that with Pastor's question of whether we can live with it. To me, it's very simple, and we can get into the details. But when the church was first designed, we had hard seating here and flexible seating there, and we just flip them. These pews fit right over there just fine. I've sat there a lot of times, and it is not an ideal configuration. If these pews were put there, it would be a very good seating area for parishioners. And all the music goes over here, the flex seating fills in whatever areas until we figure out how we want to arrange the furniture. And it might be the one compromise that we have to make as a congregation to not lose seating for worshipers is for the choir to sit in front. You alluded to that, Steve, but if that's our only if that's our only
Concession.
compromise, you know, I think we can look through it.
Agreed, but we're not voting. Pastor Courtright, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the discussion?
Again, I haven't studied these extensively too. I'd be curious, maybe Mark knows, how many seats we lose specifically with any of the configurations, but that's just a practical consideration and thinking about accommodating the people, which is why we're here for worship. So maybe we'll look at that or maybe I do not have that yet.
Other questions? And again, this isn't the end all. We've got 6 weeks roughly before we take another vote or enhance, modify what's been proposed. I do want to thank all of you for coming today and voicing your opinions and thoughts on this. Dr. Wagner, thanks so much. Kermit, thanks for being there. At least you could hear the discussion. Hopefully some of it. We've got good notes, though. And with that, going once, twice, 3 times. Thank you so much. Pastor, did you have any last minute? All right. Well, God be with you, and thanks again for coming.